Hey guys, this is R3097 here. Today is, well actually it's already May 8th, 2022. As of this video, I was supposed to do a stream yesterday, but just ended up getting kind of tired from work, and plus the food is actually pretty good. So I just kind of forgot about it. But I did say that if I wasn't going to do a stream for any circumstances, it will probably just be like this type of video right here, which I said I was going to do, because I think reaction videos to this and kind of talking about it is pretty good, at least for me, just to kind of like get my feet wet with more of the content stuff. And the Lightyear videos on the way. Just taking my time with it because it is a lot of research into doing it and making sure I have like the right information, knowing what to talk about, come in with theories, shit like that. Well, I'm not saying it's gonna be a theory video, but it's more of like summarizing everything of what we know, just giving my 2 cents about it. Yeah, maybe I'll throw out a theory here and there, that type of shit. But yeah, what we're gonna be doing today is reacting / discussing to this video, the complete history of the Sony PlayStation. I think it's a pretty good one to start out with, and basically the way it's going to work is that we're going to watch it but pause at certain points to kind of like give my 2 cents about it, and then keep going with that same process, because I've always enjoyed like these kinds of videos where dudes will like watch the video, pause to give their 2 cents about it to make it better for the viewer to understand. So I want to try and do something like that. Maybe not so analytical, but just general opinions about it. So let me go on ahead and just let me just go ahead and get started on that. And let's see how it goes.
Before it became a household name.
Back then, it was just a no-go. The Sony execs were like, we are not a toy company, and we are not going to get into this business.
Before it dominated the world of gaming.
Sega had managed to capture 52% of the market in both Europe and the United States.
It was only an underdog, thought up by a man with a vision.
Ken is, I guess you...
Oh, okay. What the fuck?
In both Europe and the United States.
It was only an underdog, thought up by a man with a vision.
Ken is, I guess you...
Wait, what?
Sony record.
For whatever, okay, so for whatever reason, there's a certain part of the video for like a few seconds where you can't hear shit. Hold on. All right.
With a vision.
Ken is, I guess you...
It's right when that happens, and I'm sorry that this is probably still gonna be in the video, but yeah, I've never had this before. Hold on. Let's see, there's another version. This is the only one. Shiba. Whatever. But I mean, we're gonna hear this part again anyways, so it's whatever.
Ken is, I guess you...
Like we're gonna hear that dude talk about it again. This one, yeah, so we're good. I just don't know why this one specifically is like there's an issue. So yeah, it's gonna be fine anyways.
Is a vice president of Sony Records.
Oh, okay. Again, I don't get what the fuck's going on.
Sony revolutionized the industry. It's that simple.
This is the history of the PlayStation. In the aftermath of World War II, a company named Sony helps the people of Japan rebuild from the ashes.
Sony is a classic post-World War II success story in Japan. they started making cassette recording machines. They created a small cassette player that played back and recorded stuff off the bat, and that was the beginning of Sony Electronics.
All right, people are gonna look back on this, like, and think to themselves, "Wow, kind of an obsolete thing to invent." But you guys have to realize, the simplest of shits that we have now for products was actually the biggest shit that that could have been out there for the market back then. Like, we're talking about the aftermath of World War II. You're talking about those cassette recorder tapes or music players, whatever. Those were revolutionary because that kind of technology or item wasn't even there before. So it set a huge standard. Like, Sony just found a way to capitalize on it. It was just like, you know what? Let's just bring this shit forward. And that's why they were revolutionary, because the technology that they came up with at the time of which, you know, this was released to the public, or I guess in this case Japan, it was top shit because it was like the only thing out there for it. I mean, yeah, sure, you had people right afterwards try making their own version, but Sony was at the top of their shit, and you can see why. They had like the technology for it, they had the right people for it. So I think this was 200 IQ. It's such a 200 IQ move.
Innovative products such as the Walkman helped Sony become one of the most successful electronics companies in the world.
That's what I'm talking about. The many inventions, the Walkman, the recorder, you know, those things. Literally, they knew how to capitalize on a market that didn't even existed. It didn't even exist. Well, I mean, no, yeah, it didn't exist because none of these items were even out. So Sony was like the first person through the door, and they were just like, "Hey guys, this is our product. Here you go." So I like it. I mean, it's standard business shit. It's like, you're the first person within the field to do this. You're gonna obviously want to capitalize on it. Now, just because you capitalize on it first doesn't mean that, oh, you know, you'll get it right away or you'll be successful. But the way that they played it out was super good. That's why they were like one of the most revolutionary companies at the time, and they still are to this day. But back then, it was just more of a, it was a lot more of a stronghold. And I think it's just something I have to give them props for, because, you know, most companies, when they get like the top of the game, they sometimes just throw it away because then they just don't know what to do with it. Sony just took that shit for themselves, and then, yeah, just had it for a lot of years. Granted, they don't have too much at the top high now, but they're still like, actually no, they're still one of the top dogs. It's just, I think the stronghold just has a lot more competition to it. So, you know, props to them for, you know, just keeping it up there.
Well, whenever people talk about Sony, a lot of people think about the Walkman. The Walkman was definitely Sony's first consumer product that really exploded. It was the portability of music, and everyone walked around with headphones. They really revolutionized the idea of portable music listening.
That's what I'm talking about. Revolutionary products that literally changed the course of not only history from a media perspective, music perspective, but also daily life perspective. You guys have to think about this, right? You're talking about back then when none of these motherfuckers or anybody was wearing headphones like this. It was like top-notch shit. It was top-notch shit. I mean, it was like, wow, a person walking down the street with headphones listening to music? It's like, what the fuck is wrong with that guy, you know? But no, back then, it was just the simple shit that we're doing now was like the greatest thing in the world to these guys back then. That's just how crazy it is. It also provides a testament as to, you know, how far we've come with technology. Like, it's still fucking insane.
Sony gains more and more ground in the consumer electronics world. The video game industry grows by leaps and bounds. And by the early 1990s, the war for gamers' dollars is red hot.
Sega and Nintendo are really dueling in the West. Sega had managed to capture 52% of the market in both Europe and the United States. Sega was more innovative at the time. They were always willing to take more chances. Sega was coming out with 70, 80 games of its own per year. The strategy at Nintendo was, let's hold on for the next Miyamoto game.
Nintendo pays close
The strategy of their chances. Sega was coming out with 70, 80 games of its own per year. The strategy of Nintendo was, let's hold on
Okay,
to
there
the
we go.
next Miyamoto
I
game.
thought I paused in my head.
Nintendo pays close attention when Sega unveils its latest technological advancement.
So Sega came out with the Sega.
Its latest technological advancement.
So Sega came out with the Sega CD. All of a sudden, games were going to be huge. They could be 600 megabytes of information.
To meet the Sega CD threat, Nintendo turns to Sony.
Nintendo wanted a partner, so they went to Sony, which of course was a huge, successful company. Sony may not have been a video game company per se, but the Super NES used a Sony stereo chip for its sound. Sony was certainly, in its own way, a player in the video game industry in a small way.
That is true. That is true. You know how they say, you may not be part of the main circle, but you're still helping out as support. That's basically what Sony was. They weren't part of the video game industry back then, but they were essentially like helping out in a way. And that's actually a good point, because the SNES process or chip that they were talking about, that made the Super Nintendo music sound super fucking crisp for a console back then. Like, I think a lot of games there just sounded way better for the most part compared to the Sega Genesis games. I mean, it's that simple. And I know some people are just like, oh, why are you only focused about the audio? Guys, you have to remember, back then there was literally a war about 8-bit versus 16-bit. So, the 8-bit, being Nintendo, and then 16-bit with Sega when they started getting going with that. So, and we're still picky to this day about like, oh, this game or company has like better visuals. No, this game has shitty visuals but has way better music than that company. It's like, it doesn't make a difference because we're all still gonna fucking compare and complain about it anyway. So, but yeah, the Super Nintendo sound, or the sound just blew everyone's fucking shit out of the water back then. I think it was like one of the top-notch ones that there was at the time. So I think it was really good for them to have that, because otherwise I think the Super Nintendo probably would have, I don't know if it would have made a difference, but I think a lot of it probably would have been gone in terms of the success, because you want to have like a system that is capable of good sound, great graphics, good games, that stuff. So I think that was pretty good.
So it was a race. Nintendo knew that CD-ROM technology was the way to go.
The original concept was a peripheral CD drive for the Super Nintendo that would be sold by Nintendo, and a combined unit which would be called PlayStation, which was the console and the CD drive together, which would be sold by Sony.
Sony brought in an engineer named Ken Kutaragi.
Well, when you talk about the PlayStation, you just have to talk about Ken Kutaragi, who is considered the father of PlayStation. He came in to Sony in 1975. Right off the bat, he was considered to be kind of a brash engineer. He was very feisty and had a lot of ideas.
He struck me immediately as a very forceful character. He had a clarity of thought and insight, which I think was, I still think to this day is very rare. He clearly is a visionary.
Very dynamic, very energetic, full of ideas, and very creative. He's known to be a fantastic engineer and a brilliant person on the engineering and technical side, but that's just the half of it.
I met Ken Kutaragi once. It was not like you were looking at an executive who was buttoned up. You were looking at a guy who was in the trench, who was clearly an engineering mind and was resolving problems. He's an impressive mind, and he's achieved impressive things.
The idea of working on a video game console is nothing new to Kutaragi.
He was thinking about making a 3D game console a long, long time ago while people were tinkering away on 8-bit gaming. He approached Norio Oga, who was then president of Sony, and said that we should get into the video game industry. But back then, it was just a no-go. Oga and the Sony execs were like, we are not a toy company, and we are not going to get into this business. So that was that.
But now, things are different. Hand in hand, Ken Kutaragi and the people at Nintendo team up to bring Sega to its knees. But Sony is about to face a bitter betrayal that will change the course of gaming history. Sega prepares its new CD-ROM expansion.
They weren't kidding. It literally changed the entire gaming industry scope. If this shit did not happen, a lot of things in the gaming industry now would have been fucking different. Certain partnerships wouldn't happen. Certain consoles maybe weren't going to come out. I think the games part, maybe. I'm pretty sure the games at the time that were on their way or in the process of being made or whatever, I think those would have been fine for the most part. Although it's very hard to tell as far as the game part. But as far as like the partnerships, the consoles that came out, it would have been radically different. I imagine we wouldn't have gotten like the PS2, PS3, PS4, PS5, unless PlayStation later on just said, fuck it, let's just do our own shit. Nintendo, same thing.Maybe most of their consoles wouldn't have come out. Maybe Xbox wouldn't have even been a thing, because I think the Microsoft thing with Xbox kind of happened because they were trying to, I forgot what it was. I think it was just something along the lines of, oh, they were just trying to help out, but then they just got told, go fuck yourself or some shit like that. I'm not sure. I might be totally wrong on that one, so I'm not confident behind that statement. So don't fucking quote me on that one. But yeah, they're not kidding when they say that. It would change the entire scope for good, 110%. And anyone that says that it wouldn't are out of their fucking minds.
For the Genesis, Nintendo and Sony work on a CD-ROM system of their own. But Nintendo begins to have second thoughts.
The big reason why Nintendo kind of balked on the Sony technology idea was that they weren't going to have any rights to the CD technology. Sony was going to retain all the making of the CDs, they were going to manufacture it, distribute it, and that totally cut Nintendo out of the picture on definitely a large profit margin.
And that made Nintendo very, very nervous.
Alright, I know some people have conflicted opinions about that, as far as like whether Nintendo was right to balk out the deal and go over to what was it, Philips to basically ask, hey, can you do this for us? Now I'm going to comment on one part of it and then the other. So basically the part I'm going to talk about is, were they right to seek out someone else? And where the second part would be, was the conduct good or bad? I was talking about the first part. I don't think they were in the wrong for wanting to look elsewhere, because I think anyone in that situation would have done the same thing. Almost anyone. I mean, it's like this, right? And I'm going to try my best to make this analogy make any sense. It's like, you build a house, right? Or you want to build a house. You have this idea. You have the land. You have, you're about to make the blueprint. You have ideas on what you want to do, your own ideas. And then you bring in someone that's going to help you out with that. And they come in with their own shit. And when they come in with their own shit, they're going to take like most of the control. They're going to have more input on design, on your own fucking design. They're going to have this and that. When somebody like that has, or company has more control, has more to it, well, not more to it, but they have more benefits from it than you do off of your own fucking idea, then yeah, of course, you would be like, damn, what the fuck? It would just been terrible. I definitely don't disagree with Nintendo doing this, that on that part of it at least. I definitely would have done the same thing, because it's like, a deal like this should be favorable for both sides. It should be at least a 50-50. And I don't see how that could have been not possible. Like, I just don't see how it couldn't have been not possible. Like, unless they were trying to talk about it, then it didn't work out, then I can maybe understand then. But I don't know. The other part too, which is the second part of it, is, you know, assuming they didn't even tell, you know, assuming Nintendo didn't tell Sony, which later on in the video, within the next minute or two, that's what is implied, then that's not necessarily the best way to handle it, because even if you're going to leave the deal, I would, you know, you would have at least the decency to let them know ahead of time, like, hey, this is not going to work out, we're going to go elsewhere. Now, maybe for, if I had to guess, legal reasons that they couldn't, but I would have taken that risk anyways, because it's like, why would I want to stay in the deal that's not that favorable to me, and literally you're just taking most of the benefits, if not all of them. Like, what do I get out of it? Off of my own fucking idea. Like, let's take a look real quick, actually. Does this even show? It does. Okay. So, Sony and Nintendo partnership. Alright, here we go. Okay, so it says, I don't know if you guys can see. Oh, actually, my camera's too big, but I'll read it. Actually, no, here we go. Alright, so development of the format started in 1988 when Nintendo signed a contract with Sony to produce a CD-ROM add-on for the Super Nintendo NES. Or, yeah, Super Nintendo Entertainment System, okay. System was to be compatible with the existing NES titles, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so they signed a contract in 1988. So it was already done and then, right then and there, as far as like the agreement. So they both agreed to the deal. I don't know why, now that I look at it, I don't know why the fuck Nintendo even fucking agreed to this contract. But whatever. Under their agreement, Sony would develop and retain control over the Super Disc format, with Nintendo thus effectively ceding a large amount of control of software licensing to Sony. Further, Sony would also be the sole benefactor of licensing relating to music and movie software it had been aggressively pursuing as a secondary application. I mean, music, movies. I mean, it's fucking Sony. Of course they would. Nintendo president was already aware of Sony at this point, deemed unacceptable, as Sony was the sole provider of the audio chip. The SMP required developers to pay. Okay, so now that I look at this, here's what I have to say. I don't know why the fuck Nintendo even agreed to this shit. If it wasn't a beneficial deal at all, that they literally later said wasn't, then why did they even agree to this deal? Unless there's something I'm completely missing, I just don't see how the fuck, I just don't see how, like, they agreed to this. Unless they felt compelled to do it just for the fuck of it, or out of desperation, I just don't see how they would even agree to that deal. Wait. Okay, it doesn't show. Whatever. I don't know. I mean, that's the only two reasons I could come up with. It's like, unless they felt desperate to do it, or they felt compelled by either their own party or maybe some pressure from Sony, which is legitimate. I mean, it is not uncommon for, you know, a company to pressure you into an agreement between you and that company. I mean, that's just not uncommon. So unless it's one of those reasons, I just don't see why you would agree to this. I just don't see why you would. It's so fucking terrible. Like, not only the large amount of control of software, but you're also talking about the profit from it too. Well, I mean, I'm sure maybe the profit, who knows? But I would definitely, if I saw this deal right before I had to sign it, I would have just said, fuck you, I'm not signing that shit. And that's simple.
So in the forefront, Nintendo's telling Sony everything's great. But behind the scenes, Nintendo went to Philips and said, why don't you start working on something for us?
Nintendo's insecurities lead to a dramatic climax in 1991.
I mean, I guess you could call it an insecurity, but like, it's actually a legitimate insecurity. No, I mean, like, it is. I mean, again, you're talking about a deal that literally doesn't give you anything from the pie. And even if you get anything from the pie, it's like a tiny fucking crumb. Like I said, anyone would have left that deal. I would have left that deal. Hell, I would even fucking consider it. If they send me like a proposal of it, or yeah, if they send me like a proposal, you know, before you sign the actual agreement, and I saw exactly the same details, I would have just said, fuck no. I would have just said, fuck no. Fuck that shit, man. It's like, why the fuck would I agree to that deal? Like, that's so fucking terrible. Like, yeah, it's insecurity. Like, I'm not disagreeing with the word. I disagree with the way it's kind of presented, because it makes it seem like Nintendo is insecurity there was bad. Now, I do understand the other part of it where, because it was implied in this video, and I guess, let me see, sorry, I'm just reading this. So yeah, I'm reading this here, and unless there's like an article elsewhere that completely goes into it, it doesn't show like Nintendo ever saying to them, hey, we're gonna go talk to Philips because this is ridiculous, this contract is or this offer is fucking dog shit, why the fuck would we ever accept this? No, it was literally already agreed upon, and it was right afterwards where they're just like, yeah, I'm not doing this shit. It's like, I'm not doing this shit, you know? Also, let's look at this. The Philips deal was meant to do two things at once. Give Nintendo back its stranglehold on software and gracefully fuck Sony. Like, I don't get this part. Gracefully fuck Sony. That off of a deal that you agreed to. You saw the details. You saw what it was going to do. And you were like, let me agree to this deal, right? Let me agree to this deal, and not only do that, have regrets later, which are valid regrets, don't get me wrong. Valid regrets. And then we fuck Sony. Yeah, I don't know. I think both sides are at wrong here. I think Sony was way too greedy on this, on the deal. I think Nintendo was fucking stupid for not even realizing how stranglehold of a deal it was, and then afterwards not only waiting until like way later just to decide I'm not doing this shit anymore, and then just not even telling Sony that, hey, we're gonna go talk to someone else. And on top of that, I mean, Philips was like their biggest rival, or one of Sony's biggest rivals. So yeah, Sony's gonna get pissed from that. I would too. I don't blame him at all.
CES comes around, and Ken Kutaragi and Sony come out, and they announce the Nintendo PlayStation, because they don't know anything's going on.
Nintendo made a sudden announcement and said, well, we're going to work with Philips on the CD technology. That didn't go very well with Sony execs, and Ken Kutaragi was definitely very bummed. He went into Norio Oga's office and said, we just got backstabbed, blindsided by Nintendo. We had an agreement, and they totally betrayed us.
Kutaragi went back to his bosses and said, let's not leave it like this. We can make an actual game system. We won't stop with the CD-ROM, we'll build the whole system.
And Oga, who was totally dead set against it before, now feeling the betrayal from Nintendo and being the samurai corporate guy that he is, said, that's it. Pounded his fist on the desk, said two famous words, do it. And that was the beginning of the Sony PlayStation.
Now, more driven than ever, Ken Kutaragi and Sony set out to make a video game console unlike any other. At first, Sony plans to release a system that plays both CD-ROMs and Super Nintendo cartridges. In 1992, 200 units of this PlayStation are manufactured, but are quickly scrapped. Sony decides to wait for the next wave of consoles to enter the fray, and intends to capitalize on CD-ROM technology.
There was a big...
That's another smart decision. I feel like if they released the PlayStation before those two consoles even came out, that would have been worse. It would have fucked them in business, because you're giving two people or two companies an advantage, because they're going to look at what you're doing. They're going to look at the pros, but they're also going to look at the cons. And they're going to look at it and be like, what can we improve from it? Oh yeah, better rendering, better this. It's like, fuck no. You wait until your competition is ahead, and then from there you get them by the behind. And I think Sony, while it is a risk to do it, they were smart in doing it, because they had the technology to make the shit that they needed to do. But I think they wanted to wait to see exactly what the competition was failing on, so that way they could come in and be like, hey, that Sega Saturn console, you think it looks like a pile of bricks? Well, we got one that looks HD crisp with good audio, game libraries that you know and love. It's like, that's business 101. That's business 101. You just, you don't do it all the time, but you do it at the right moment. And I think this was the right moment.
Change taking place in terms of media, game media like cartridges, CD-ROMs. This really changed the finances behind game development and game publishing.
In October 1993, Sony announces that it's working on a new 32-bit game console. The name of this new system is the PlayStation X, or PSX. The CPU for this console will be designed by Ken Kutaragi himself. On November 16th, the company officially forms Sony Computer Entertainment.
We formed Sony Computer Entertainment, Inc. as a company, as a joint venture between Sony Corp and Sony Music Japan.
This new department raises more than a few eyebrows.
When PlayStation was being mentioned here in the US, people were saying, can Sony deliver games? Could they really enter the hardware side?
To some people within Sony, PlayStation represented the future and was very exciting, but to other people it was definitely a threat and something that they didn't fully understand.
You had a lot of people that were pretty much skeptical about us getting into the business. Even before we came out, we were pretty much placed in the failure column because we were just newcomers.
I remember having dinner with a vice president of Sony Records, and he told me, the PlayStation's never gonna work. Sony's gonna lose on this.
The irony for all of us was that as much credibility as Sony had as a brand, we had zero credibility as far as the world of games was concerned.
Sony, I think, corporately was a little discouraged. How do we get into this new charted area?
Sony knows that the road ahead won't be easy, but Ken Kutaragi has an ace up his sleeve that will dazzle the entire game industry. As Sony Computer Entertainment goes full bore into the development of the PlayStation, it becomes clear that this will be a console unlike any other.
The biggest feature of PlayStation was going to be the real-time 3D graphics technology.
At the time, the PlayStation was a faster console than anything out in the market. You could push more polygons. It gave developers a larger toolbox to work with than any of the competing consoles. And of course, it used CD-ROMs.
After watching the failure of systems like the 3DO very closely, Sony realizes that processing power alone isn't enough to come out on top in the world of video games.
We looked at the business models of all of the companies that have been in the space or tried to get in the space, and we asked ourselves, could we do this better? The biggest problem...
I like that. Like I said, you do shit like that because you want to see what they're doing good in. You also want to see what they're doing bad in. And you think to yourself, what can we do better that blows the competition out of the water? Like, that's a good business move because you want to see where your competition's at. You want to see where they stand. And you want to see who's trying to enter the competition and trying to see what they're going to do. Because sometimes finishing early is not necessarily the best way to finish a race. As weird as that sounds. Here, I think they were in the complete right and are smart for coming up with the idea that, hey, let's look at the models of our competition. Let's look at, everything that's in, from within. Let's look at their library. Let's look at their pros, their cons, and let's look at what we have and think, what can we do better? I think that's pretty good. I think that's one way to do it. And I think that's a standard procedure nowadays, because it's like, why would you not, look to see what your competition's doing, and on top of that, you look and see, their upcomings and their shortfalls or shortcomings. You just look at those and you put that in your strategy so you can capitalize on the missed opportunity that they're not taking. Like, that's fucking good.
That we had was that the market in 1993 was dominated by Sega and Nintendo. They pretty much had it sewn up between them. So any new entrant into the market had to do something pretty dramatic and pretty special.
Sure, we had the system, sure, we had the hardware, but it doesn't mean anything unless you have games. Nintendo already had Miyamoto, and he was a genius. Sega, they already had their arcade games, but Sony, what do they have? They don't have a genius developer or arcade games they're making, so they had to find software somewhere.
We knew that in order to be successful, we had to capture the hearts and minds of the developers and the publishers equally.
So what they did was they went on a very aggressive campaign to all the developers. At first, a lot of developers were dead set against it, mainly because it was high technology. It was 3D, and a lot of game companies were still making 2D games, and they said that's going to be so expensive to make 3D games, no way we can afford it, and it's going to be very hard.
Fight one! Ready? Go!
One game that changed it and helped Sony, ironically, was Virtua Fighter.
Sega announced Virtua Fighter for the first time, and that completely opened up eyes of other publishers that showed that 3D graphics can be applied to other types of games.
All of a sudden, there was a leap. I couldn't keep up with enough of the companies that were coming to us. They were asking us, can we do this? Is it possible to do this? Everybody wanted to work on the system.
Sony does everything it can to round up third-party developers to support the PlayStation and is able to sign 250 in Japan alone.
The first task for me was managing the third-party departments to recruit and help support third parties like Namco. My target was to get as many publishers and many popular title franchises to become available on PlayStation.
Sony also spends $48 million to purchase Psygnosis, the European developer behind Lemmings, and changes its name to Sony Interactive Entertainment. In December of 1994, Sony releases the PlayStation, now without an X, in Japan.
The success in Japan was almost instantaneous. Another 3 months to get to the million mark in Japan. And I remember the then chairman of Nintendo saying that if we ever got to 1 million units, he would resign because he clearly knew nothing about the games business. It took him a few more years to actually get around to it, but I thought it was a great statement.
The next step is ensuring a successful launch in the US and Europe. To pull this off, Sony spares no expense. The Japanese giant spends a rumored $4 million for a booth at E3 in 1995. Sony also kicks off a huge marketing blitz to raise awareness for the PlayStation.
The marketing strategy was very clearly defined from the beginning that we needed to appeal to an older, more sophisticated...
Dude, I would have loved to gone to fucking E3 during those times, but I think this one in particular, I didn't even exist yet. But I'm talking about like the really awesome E3s, the ones where with everything in it, interactive shit. I mean, yeah, streams are great and all nowadays, but you gotta miss like the old times sometimes. But yeah, I definitely would have loved to gone to this kind of E3. It would have blown my fucking mind if I was able to go to this shit. So just wanted to be a nostalgia fanboy for a sec.
Audience. We also had a very smart bunch of people in our marketing department who recognized that everybody really wants to be 19. If you're 12, you want to be 19. If you're 25, you really want to be 19 again. And so what they did was they targeted 19 as the communication tone of voice.
Another thing that I think was really key to establishing that credibility for us was the idea that gamers wanted to work a bit harder at deciphering messages, you know, teasing a date like 9995, playing with Enos, which was essentially Sony spelled backwards.
Sony was saying games are a lifestyle, and we're going to promote and work it from a lifestyle perspective.
We very deliberately stayed away from making SONY, the Sony brand, a big part of the communications message. The initial tagline of "You are not ready" was the first big step that we took in saying, this is not your parents' Sony brand.
With this new mindset, Sony sets out to conquer the United States. After a nationwide marketing blitz unlike any other, Sony launches the PlayStation in the United States on September 9th, 1995.
The first day, September 9th, I felt really like, oh, we did it. But it was not really a huge amount of numbers in the first year. It's like only 800,000 units.
The initial launch of the PlayStation was a real happy day for me. It just was overwhelming. For a relatively unknown company, at least in the video game business, to get that kind of enthusiasm from day one.
The original PlayStation, I think, really touched a nerve. I think part of that was down to the product itself. It's a great hardware device, and they lined up some great software, and I'd like to think we did some nice marketing as well.
The controller of the PlayStation, like, it's unbelievable. It's just perfect.
The PlayStation picks up more and more sales thanks to powerful hardware and a collection of exclusive games and other hits.
We had Ridge Racer as a driving game.
Okay, the final lap. Hang in there.
So we had a driving game, and then I wanted a fighting game. So I went out and hunted for that. I found Toshinden. And if you look at the sexiness and the appeal of what Toshinden was about as a fighting game, it was fabulous. It was a major, major hit. In 1996, we came out and launched Crash Bandicoot. Crash Bandicoot was a terrific launch title, defined PlayStation as a platform.
And it was about a year or so after the launch of PlayStation. One of the executives at Squaresoft said he's gonna make Final Fantasy on PlayStation. At that point, I felt that all the tides will change.
The PlayStation proves to be a juggernaut that plows through all competition.
The Saturn launched before PlayStation in 1995, which was the wrong time to launch. Also at a very expensive price point. I believe it launched at $399 versus $299.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. $399 for a shitty console. $299. $100 cheaper. Better console. Sometimes waiting for your competition to fuck up is better than to finish ahead of them. Just saying, guys.
PlayStation launched and did not have very good games.
But it was around Thanksgiving and going into the holiday of 1995 where we started getting reports that the retailers were just not going to have enough PlayStation units to last them through the holiday selling season. It really turned into a feeding frenzy.
The success of the PlayStation goes beyond even Sony's expectations.
Eventually, the success of the PS2 kind of like brought the PS1 era to a close. But you can still walk into Toys R Us and buy PS1 games.
The PlayStation has changed the world of gaming as we know it.
If Sony had not brought hardware to the video game industry, I think the industry would be a lot smaller than it is right now.
Before the original PlayStation came out, the media perception of the video game business was that it's basically a toy for kids. But we saw the PlayStation as not really a platform of entertainment for kids, but really an interactive entertainment platform for everybody.
Sony revolutionized the industry with the PlayStation. It's that simple. They started off as an underdog, and in 10 years have managed to own over half the market, and that's just incredible.
There are now over 35 million PlayStation 1 machines in the US and Canada combined, which puts us at an unbelievable household penetration rate compared to other game systems. And I think for many consumers, PlayStation equaled gaming.
Today, Sony remains #1. The PlayStation successor, the PlayStation 2, has shipped more than 90 million units worldwide and is still going strong. Sony is moving into the portable gaming market with the PSP, while the next generation PlayStation 3 is just around the corner.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to the father of the PlayStation, Ken Kutaragi.
And the man that started it all is still at the helm, ready for the next challenge.
And now, I have the final and the biggest announcement.
Ken Kutaragi is a man who has like years in advance plotted out in his head and has an amazing vision of where he wants video games to go.
Ken is really the father of the PlayStation.
He always believed PlayStation would be #1.
Yep, there it is. There it is. Wait, how long? Is this going to be muted for the whole thing? Hold on. Oh yeah, it is. Alright. Well, that was the video. I mean, I've seen this video like many times, so I mean, it's not new to me as far as like the information is concerned. It's just wanted to react on certain points, which I thought were good ones to react on. Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was pretty good. Can't wait to do this. Can't wait to do this again. And yeah, the next one for the reaction series is gonna be that Crash Bandicoot documentary. I'll probably do it right after this one. If not, then I mean, as far as recording, of course. As far as uploading, it's gonna be a little bit different. But yeah, just gonna go ahead and end the video again. Thank you guys again so much for watching. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Hopefully this was good entertainment for you while you were doing your homework, just eating, whatever, whatever helps to pass on the time. So I'm gonna go ahead and end the video. Thank you guys again so much for watching. R3097 on Twitter, R3097 on this channel, R3097 on my Twitch channel in case you're interested in watching me stream. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm gonna go ahead and end the video. Hopefully you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys next time.